I'm Cindy Briggs, and this is Soldier's Heart. Hi everyone, this is Cindy Briggs, the creator and producer of Soldier's Heart, and this is the final episode of the first season. I want to thank you all for listening and supporting the podcast. Over the past few months, I've learned how hungry people are for these stories. Stories not just of war, but of perseverance, courage, and generosity. Stories that connect us to our ancestors and, to quote Abraham Lincoln, to the better angels of our nature. It's no exaggeration to say that listening to these veteran stories over the past 5 years has changed my life for the better. I'll never be able to thank them enough for sharing their lives with me. I hope you feel the same way. In the first episode of this podcast, I said that these stories were, most of all, about love. Love of country, of fellow soldiers, of family and tradition. This episode in particular is about love. As we near Veterans Day, we need to remember that when Americans are overseas in uniform, they're not just warriors. They can also serve as beacons of hope for a weary world. This final episode does not feature a veteran. Instead, you'll hear from a civilian, someone who experienced World War II from the inside. Lesley Saner was a little girl living in Manchester, England, when World War II broke out. She recalls vividly what it was like to endure the constant bombardment during the German Blitzkrieg that started in 1940. Nightly and sometimes during the day, German planes would fan out over the city, dropping incendiary bombs on targets including industrial areas, but also civilian neighborhoods. The most deadly 2 nights of bombing occurred between December 22nd and 24th of 1940. Almost 700 people were killed and 2,000 injured. Countless homes were destroyed. Lesley experienced it all through the eyes of a first grader. Lesley's story is my Veterans Day gift to all the vets out there who wondered if what they did mattered, if any little kindness made a difference. Maybe you're wondering that too. Listen to Lesley's story, and perhaps you'll find the answer.
I remember the war distinctly. I was in first grade. We lived outside Manchester, which was an industrial town. Every night we were woken up. Every night. The air raid siren went off, and I remember that I would stand up in bed and shout, "Mummy!" And she would shout, "I'm coming!" And she was a nurse, and she had a beautiful red cape with a red hood. It was part of her nurse's uniform. She used to come in the bedroom, snatch me up, put her nurse's cloak round me and the hood over me, wrap me up tightly. This was a 2-story house, and we'd start downstairs. Meanwhile, the bombers were already flying over the house. She would come and get me, and I can remember the sound of her fingers a lot. As she walked, she was feeling the wall to see where she was, made a sort of whispering noise. But there was always a feeling of extreme urgency because the planes are getting louder as more arrive. Then we'd go into class, and sometimes there would be air raids. And as soon as there was an air raid, we would be all classes would empty and go into the basement. And when they were very close and they were dropping the bombs, cracks, very thin, hair-thin cracks appeared, and little glittery bits of stuff came down. The teachers would start singing, and we'd all sing to take your mind off it, so you wouldn't be quite so frightened. But the most thing I remember of the war, it was cold. We didn't have quite enough food. We were always just a bit hungry. The queues, you lined up, and my mother scrabbling through her handbag. Did you pick up one of the ration books? No, Mummy? Because you couldn't get anything if you didn't have your ration book, because it's a small island with a lot of people, and if it hadn't been for America sending us food, I don't know what we'd have done. And I saw this big cardboard box in the corner, and then it had a picture of two hands shaking each other, and it said, "A gift from the people of the USA." And I said to my mother, "What's the USA?" And so she told me what the USA was. We were all somewhat malnourished, and we needed vitamins badly. And God bless America, because they sent us vitamins. I loved America, so I said to my mother, "Why are they sending us food and they don't even know us?" And she said, because they have England and America are a lot alike. There are a lot of English people who went and lived in America maybe 200 years ago, and American people are very kind. When they have a lot of stuff, they share. My mother was very big on sharing. Then it was getting towards D-Day, and then we were on a bus, came to Crossroads, and all these army vehicles held us up, and somebody at the back said, "Hey, the Yanks are here! 3 cheers for the Yanks!" And the whole bus was cheering.
All right.
These GIs used to go in this little park opposite, and we used to meet them every day. This was our happy day because we had fun, and I think they did too. One of the boys brought a soccer ball because we had to tell these very nice GIs that a ball shaped like a lemon is not a football. A football is a round ball, and they all laughed, and they were nice when we told them. They give us this magic candy that you chewed it and chewed it and chewed it. You didn't swallow it, and it tasted of mint, and it lasted and lasted till you go home. You could show to your parents, and if you saved it, they could chew it if they wanted to.
Do you remember when the war ended?
Oh, yes.
What happened?
People were cheering on the streets and shouting, and the American planes were flying overhead, waggling their wings to us, and we would run up the street, and they would fly over us, and then they would throw things out, candy, and foil that they used against radar. But the Germans didn't actually have it, I don't think, at that point. But to us, it was magic stuff, so we'd run out with our hands like that, we'd shout and we'd wave, and the GIs would wave, and they would throw sweets, and then everybody would say, "They're all here, they're all here." And we'd all run to where here was and picking up the sweets, The GIs were they were the happiness for us. Every time we saw them, and we'd wave to them and shout to them, and I remember them with much love. I wish so much I could thank them. I don't know what we'd have done without America's help. I really don't.
Soldier's Heart is written and produced by me, Cindy Briggs, and features veteran stories from North Carolina. We honor vets by listening to their stories. You can follow along on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Soldier's Heart NC. If you have an idea for a story or interview, email us at soldiersheartnc@gmail.com. Special thanks to the New Winston Museum of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where all of these stories are archived. You can learn more about the museum at newwinston.org.